Greetings, everyone. This is Courtney from Black Theater Nerd, and today I thought I would tell you a little bit more about the behind-the-scenes work that it takes to make all of this trivia. So I want to show you how I go from an idea, which is grouping trivia together by writers, composers, and creatives, to coming all up with these like cute little trivia roundups that I make via Canva. So you could see that the most recent one that I made was for Pasek and Paul. And this is kind of how I start off from scratch. So what I do is I copy the last roundup that I've made. And at the end, I'm saying, okay, this is that composer and these are for 4 different actors. These are the works that they've been in for that composer. So if I want to change it, I go right there, and that's where I add in Sondheim, Andrew Lloyd Webber, Jason Robert Brown, whoever it is that I'm focusing on. And then from there, I do a deep dive on the creator, on the theater creator. So I typically start with Playbill. That's everyone's theater Bible. Sometimes I use Broadway World, IBDB, just kind of depends. So I'm starting with Pasek and Paul this time, and I'm going to look at their playbill profile, and sometimes I will actually look at a playbill just to give a sense of some of their credits. Now, the catch is the credits can be tiny, and they are a snapshot in time on here. So if you're actually looking at a playbill, this is the playbill from their last work, so it's from Dear Evan Hansen. So that's not going to give me the most up-to-date information that I want to see, but it does tell me some cool things I didn't know about, like they wrote a concept album of James and the Giant Peach. That's pretty cool. I had no idea. But that's just some of the resources that I use to kind of compile my trivia factoids. You can see Playbill has a lot of information there. So then after that, I go straight to Old Faithful, which is Wikipedia. Yes, I know, you still have to verify the information, but it gives you a start. So typically the composers have their own page, and I doom scroll all the way to the bottom for musical and film credits. So the musicals, you can see here, James and the Giant Peach, Dogfight, A Christmas Story, and Dear Evan Hansen. I'm generally familiar with all of those. And then in terms of the screen, I know about Only Murders in the Building. I know about La La Land, all these sorts of things. So I'm curious about Only Murders in the Building because my trivia is centered around Black performers. So Pasek and Paul, when they wrote for Only Murders in the Building, they wrote new songs on season 3 for Oliver's Broadway show, if you're familiar with Only Murders in the Building. And so now I'm going to go on to the season 3 page, then the soundtrack page, scroll all the way to the bottom, and see what their musical credits are. And this is where sometimes I can get into a rabbit hole or get down like the wrong path. So I found that Pasek and Paul were credited on all of these songs, and then I was looking for Black performers who sang these songs. I got excited when I first looked this up. I started with Spotify, and I saw that Jason VC was singing some songs on the cast album. That took me in the wrong direction because Pasek and Paul didn't write those songs. So one of my followers clued me into that, and I really appreciate it. Then I looked at the Spirited film. Pasek and Paul wrote the music for that. So I'm like, ooh, was there a Black performer in the Spirited film? There was, Octavia Spencer, which means she sang some of their songs. But then when you go to her credits, there's no stage credits for Octavia Spencer. So that's not really going to help me here. I want to be able to find stage credits where that actor is singing that composer's work. And then I want to find 4 other stage credits for that actor that sets up the question. So this says here that Octavia Spencer has only been in one play, and that was it for her. So she's not going to be the person that I'm focusing on in this trivia. All right, so then we scroll up a little bit more. Might go with The Greatest Showman, might go with La La Land. But for right now, I know that I am going to shoot for musicals. Okay. Yeah, birdie. So I am going with James and the Giant Peach, which, again, I didn't even know that they wrote an album for. And so we're scrolling down, and we are looking for casting information. Okay, and there's usually a nifty little chart in here, which helps me out so much. So we have, it's typically folks who do an out-of-town tryout before a show is mounted, or a touring production, or a Broadway or off-Broadway production, London, one of those big places. And so if I'm not familiar with an actor, I may look at their page to see if I know them and if they fit my demographic. And I found Daniel Breaker. So Daniel Breaker, I'm very familiar with him, Black actor. Stage credits include Hamilton, Shrek the Musical, Passing Strange, tons of other things. So great. I know I'm going to go with Daniel Breaker. Okay. So on here, since he was in James and the Giant Peach, I made sure that was written down. And then I'm going to look up to see if he has a photo from James and the Giant Peach. This is usually where I get stuck because it's hard to find some of these photos. But here, this was a cast album, and so there's typically a photo of everyone, after they've done their recording. So that first photo is the one that I'm going to use. Right click it, hit save. Sometimes I have to go on YouTube to find things, or Instagram. It just kind of depends on how deep I want to go. Then I upload the file into Canva, and then I insert the file. So I had already done this, but I insert the file right here. And then I take my little Magic Studio in Canva, and I grab the one person. Yeah. And then I grab the one person whose image I need. And then I will typically flip the image over, just based on how I want it to be oriented on the page. I remove the original image, and then I place the label over it. Something that I do, I typically like to have one image kind of go up to my little header. And I just kind of like play around with the look of it. Sometimes I like it to look like one person is hugging the other. It just kind of depends. I move it back a little bit so that the logos and everything and title cards are in front of it. And then I am set. So once I've got that, then I know that I can include that actor in, kind of this roundup. So then I duplicate that. I erase my, name, Black Theater Nerd. I put in the actor's name. This actor's name is Daniel Breaker. And then I'm going to look for some of his other credits. Okay. Like I said, I know that he's been in Hamilton and Shrek and some other things, but I also like my trivia to kind of help expand people's minds. So let's see some credits that folks might not know about. So I see several Lynn Nottage plays on here. I see Book of Mormon on here, several Shakespeare works. So we are going to start searching. Passing Strange is on here twice. And I just included Passing Strange in some Coleman Domingo trivia. So I'm going to go with that. I know that picture is Daniel Breaker from Passing Strange. I'm going to remove the background, set it right there. Make sure I have the title written in. It's Passing Strange. And then I'm going to set all of the photos later because I want them all to kind of like mesh well together. But for right now, I know that one is labeled as such. Okay, so now I'm going to keep looking. Love to find Lynn Nottage play that he was in. That one was actually directed by his wife. You okay, bird? Good. So I had looked for this photo, and the photo, unfortunately, is really grainy. So I couldn't use that one. So then I go back to his credits, and I see if there's another one I could use. So I found, by the way, Meet Vera Stark. And when I'm searching, I typically have to type in the, title of the work. I have to type in that person's name because I really want to make sure I'm getting the right image of that person, right? So this is an image of Daniel Breaker and Sanaa Lathan from that production. I go to Magic Grab just him, and it's going to percolate for me. Then I'm going to remove the original image. Also, I have no intent to, violate anything. I'm not selling, any of this. I, hope to not offend anyone. Just putting the trivia out there. So, by the way, meet Vera Stark. I place it on there. He kind of looks like Samuel Jackson from Pulp Fiction, just from that image. And then I place it in front. And then I may, tilt it, twist it, what have you, just to get a good kind of like orientation there. Something that's going to entertain me, if nothing else. Play around with that. Place the title cards there. Cool. So that looks good. Sometimes I increase the size of their name. Just kind of depends on what I'm looking to do. So now I'm going back to his credits. I don't want to use Hamilton because I end up using it so many times for so many actors.
I'm going there.
Yeah. So.
Mommy, I'm going there to the wall.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to the wall.
Okay. And then sometimes I use a TV credit. So Girls 5 Eva, very popular, even though, it's not going to come back for a new season. He played Sarah Bareilles' husband. That's Renee Elise Goldsberry right there with him. And so I am going to use Magic Grab for that image. So I had just typed in Daniel Breaker Girls 5 Eva, found this image. So I'm using that. Remove the original, expand the image that's left over, push it to the back so that the orientation is the way I want it to be. I type in Girls 5 Eva right here. I spell it correctly. That's always a help. And then I place it in front of the image. I move it to the front if it hasn't been already. And then I move the Passing Strange title. Yep. So yeah. So that's just an example. For the last one, I went with a credit I hadn't previously been aware of, The Doctor in Spite of Himself. Because, like I was saying, I like to, teach people something new, and it means that they could end up looking up that show or that playhouse and finding out something new through my trivia. So then I go to download it, and then I'm going to prepare to upload it on my social media channels. And I do this same step for 4 actors. So for each composer or creator who I'm writing trivia about, I pick 4 actors. So the criteria is they have to have, performed in that composer or creator's work. And there's got to be pictures of them in that work and at least 4 other pictures. That's my criteria. The other thing is I like to use music. Like if the person is like a musical, performer, what have you. So I try to find music that matches. So I went looking for some Shrek music because even though Daniel Breaker was Donkey in Shrek and I don't have him on that trivia card, I still like to use the music. It actually turns out I had an old post with his travel song and I had saved that. So that is what I ended up going with. So I went onto my page. I'd gone back to that post and hit save on the audio. So now I'm looking at my saved audio and it's actually at the top. And that's it. So I'm going back to that. Then I'm going to the last post that I made. As long as it's, formatted a certain way, I can kind of use that formatting again and again like a template. I go to create a new post. I select my photo. You can make it into a reel or a post. I've also tried doing like green screen over it. Well, I've tried all kinds of things, but this works well. So I pick that song from Shrek. So it's going to play while folks look at the photo. I hit paste here. So it's got Pasek and Paul, but it's got another actor's name. So I make sure I change the actor's name. I make sure I spell it correctly. And then I add in the relevant hashtags. If they were in Hamilton, I add Hamilton. And he was in Shrek, I add Shrek. I add the names of all the other shows that I found that I'm referencing here. And then I'll also tag folks. So I will tag the playhouse where, he might have performed. I might tag a composer or a writer that he's worked with in the past, even outside of Pasek and Paul. So I like to do that. And then I share, and then I do the same post over on the other social media platforms. So that's the main formula that I use. And I like to fill that formula in for everyone. Sometimes I can't always remember like which plays I went with, so I just go back to the post to jog my memory. You could say it's mom brain or just, just being forgetful sometimes. But yeah, so I add all those in there. Yeah, I could not remember the doctor in spite of itself. After all, I just heard about it minutes before. Put it down, Bert. And then I would hit share. And then I shared my stories. Sometimes I ask people in a poll to try to answer the question. And that's how it would look. So in this instance, my 4 people who I'm focusing on with Pasek and Paul is Crystal and Lloyd, Roman Banks, Daniel Yearwood, and Daniel Breaker. And I only really knew about 2 of them before I started doing this research. And then that's what the answer card will look like. So when I post that, I download this card as well as all of the cards for the other individual actors. And then I have like a little template I use on social media to explain all of the casting. So yeah, so you could see that I have done this many times. So I've done this with Stephen Sondheim, Andrew Lloyd Webber, Lynn Ahrens. I could have done Ahrens and Flaherty, but I just went with Ahrens. Stephen Schwartz, Jason Robert Brown, Kander and Ebb, and then Pasek and Paul. Let me know if this was helpful.